Hey guys, self-esteem, huh? Hmm. Lots of Jehovah's Witnesses who leave the organization really struggle with this. Self-esteem. Why? Sometimes the ego explodes. They leave the organization and they're like, well, now I know the truth about the truth. And they're trying to prove everybody wrong, and their ego is like exploding, saying, and now I know this, and I know the scriptures you guys don't know, and I know the watchtowers that you guys have no idea about, and I read the history of watchtower, where the whole thing comes from, and the ego explodes, and sometimes it's really difficult to deal with them. I'll be honest, I went through the same phase. When you feel like, oh, now you know so much more than Jehovah's Witnesses, so the ego kind of goes up, but the self-esteem is low. The ego is high while the self-esteem is low. Because sooner or later, you've figured out that, you know what, there is this voice at the back of your head that says, who are you kidding? And a lot of people go through depression. They're like, wow, I don't know enough. I don't know if I'm smart. I don't know if I'm strong. A lot of people just feel like they're way behind their life. Why is that? See, when you're a Jehovah's Witness, it's actually very difficult to have a strong self-esteem. I thought I had it. I thought I had a strong self-esteem because I thought I was brave. Because even at the age of 7 or 8 years of age, my father would take me to a Catholic church because he was a Catholic. And he was like, bow down. And I wouldn't. I was like two people standing, priest and me. And I'm like 7 or 8 at that time. And I'm like, the priest is like, get down on your knees. I'm like, nope, I ain't doing that. You can drag me to church, but it's not going to make me bow down to those statues. What is that? A little bit of concrete painted? And I'm going to bow down to this? Not a chance. We had the strength, no matter who was standing in front of me, whether it was a teacher, whether it was the whole class. Growing up in Poland, everybody was a Catholic. It was like one person or two people max that were witnesses in the entire school. So, of course, you stand out. You're the only one that says, no, I'm not going to salute the flag. I'm not going to sing the national anthem. I'm not going to celebrate Christmas or any of the holidays, as a matter of fact. It took courage to do this. So, on one way, we had that courage in us. But on another way, we experienced a lot of fear. The more I thought about it, the more I realized, you know what, that was not that courage that we had was not a real courage. It was more like choosing the lesser evil, choosing a lesser pain, choosing lesser fear. When I was standing in that church, I remember like yesterday. I was afraid of standing still when everybody went down on their knees. But then I remember the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when my mother was reading me from my book of Bible stories, that these guys didn't bow down and they were thrown into a furnace. And yet they didn't do it. God saved them. But at the same time, what would happen if they did bow down? Ooh, God sees everything. And everybody who would bow down to the statue of the wrong God would be punished. And in our case, would not have a chance at Armageddon. So it was a threat. Just imagine somebody threatens you with death, in a horrible death of burning, and says, do what I say or you're going to burn. Is that really a self-esteem? Is that really courage? Or you're just simply more afraid of something else? I'll let you answer that yourself. But as Jehovah's Witnesses, it was very hard for us to develop self-esteem because we never could take any credit for any of our successes. If you were successful in business, you had to downplay it at best or hide your success. Because if you ever mentioned it, of course, it was viewed as you are materialistic. You're focusing on the wrong thing. You are putting your trust into this worldly things. You're promoting the world and the Satan and this system of things. So no. You're supposed to be just happy with the sustenance of life. Go pioneering if you can. What about if you work on something very noble, like maybe you try to cure cancer or find a way to fight certain diseases or heart problems? What if you actually found a cure for cancer? Well, the chances are Jehovah's Witnesses would tell you that you wasted your time because you didn't really save anybody's life. You just postponed their death. Even if you did it for like a decade of your life and you gave it to the world for free. No. See, Jehovah's Witnesses had this idea that whatever is that they're doing is more important than any other work because it's eternal. Fighting with any diseases right now it's pointless because Jesus will come, cure all the diseases, and therefore whatever it is that you're working on, it's pointless. You're better off pioneering, bringing people into the organization, save their life that way. This way they will have eternal life. They'll have a nice paradise and a panda in the backyard. While you trying to save people's life right now, you just wasted life, wasted time. That's why most Jehovah's Witnesses don't even value the life that they have right now because they don't consider it real. They're thinking the next life will be real, but this one, it's temporary. Interesting, isn't it? Now, to make things worse, the ego amongst Jehovah's Witnesses is super high because they have the truth. They have the best religion. They have the best unity. They have the best Bible. They have the best information. They have the best education. You name it, they'll say, we have the best. And because they have the best and because they have the truth, they don't have to look for anything else. They don't have to listen to anybody else. You could be the most knowledgeable, experienced Bible scholar. And they're like, well, if you agree with our teachings, we don't need to listen to you because you're already agreeing with us. Therefore, what for? We have our own channel of communication with God. We don't need you. But if you're disagreeing with us, then we're going to discredit everything that you're saying because obviously you don't have the truth if you don't understand what we're saying and you don't agree with what we're saying because we have the truth. The truth, the moment you put it in your mind that you have the truth, it's the ego hits so high. You're no longer coachable. You're no longer learning. You're no longer growing. Because once you have the truth, there is no more growth. Because how can you grow if you know what is the truth? It's like 2 + 2 is 4. You know that is a true statement. You're not going to sit here and try to discuss it, more and more, whether it's true or not, whether can we improve it? You can improve something that is true. And that's how they feel about the religion. That since it is the truth, therefore you can't really improve it unless you can just tweak it, tiny little understanding when it comes to the new light. But majority, it's like 99% true, and 1% we're just gonna tweak it. That's how they feel about it. Interesting. They also believe they're chosen by God. If they're chosen by God and they're the only religion that it's true and the only one acceptable with the only channel of communication, then who are you to question them? Who are you to question governing body? Who are you to question the channel of God's communication? Do you think you know better than them? They will put the individual always down and then bring the organization high. The moment somebody wakes up from that indoctrination, it always comes down to one moment. One moment when you, in your mind, figure it out, when you're convinced that the answer that you received from whatever source, whether you read something or you just started thinking for yourself, that the answer that you have is better than the one from the governing body, better from the organization. That's the first step. And you're like, oh, I think I know better. They're telling me that I shouldn't know better, but I think I know better. And then the domino effect starts. It's like, oh, if this doesn't make sense, then that doesn't make sense. What else is out there that it doesn't make sense? And the domino effect happens when one thing after another and a house of cards falls. But how do you build self-esteem? Because it's hard to build self-esteem when you can't even take credit for any work that you're doing. Even if you try to bring people into the organization and you're successful at it, if you bring people in, guess what? It's always the credit to Jehovah. You cannot take credit for any of the work that you do. Then how can you possibly develop self-esteem if you cannot take credit for any of the work that you're doing? And you have to downplay any success that you have. Of course, you're not going to have good self-esteem, but the ego will be high because you can't be questioned. And we have everything the best. Well, I tell you what happens. If you want to build your self-esteem after leaving the organization, the very first step, which is very difficult to swallow for a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, so listen to me very carefully, because I had to swallow that pill as well. You have to humble yourself. That's right. You have to get rid of the ego and you got to humble yourself. You got to sit down and say, you know what? Maybe I was not in the best religion. Maybe I didn't have the best understanding. Maybe I was not in the best education there is. Maybe I was deceived. Maybe I believed things that don't make sense. Maybe I was fooled. And maybe it's time for me to actually start educating myself for real. Maybe it's time for me to start learning critical thinking. Maybe it's time for me to actually educate myself and see other people's perspective and without fear. Don't be afraid of reading other books and other opinions and listening to other people who are maybe smarter than you, more educated in this field. Look for other perspectives, and you don't have to agree with them. Just because you're reading something, just because you're listening to somebody else, that does not mean you have to agree with them. When you went to the assembly and you listened to the speakers, you had to agree with everything they were saying, because you knew that whatever it is that they're saying, tomorrow you're going to have to go door to door and teach it. That's not the case in the real world. In the real world, you can read any book you want, and you don't have to agree with the author at all. You can agree with 50% of the stuff that they're saying, 30%, 20%, 80%, whatever makes sense to you. As you grow, as you learn more perspectives, you will find more and more what resonates with you, and you will become better. That's the part of us growing. Get rid of the word truth and replace it with growth. Because when you're growing, first of all, you're getting happier, you're getting smarter, and you're getting more self-esteem. Get rid of that ego. You don't know the best. You will always be learning. The stuff that you know now, it's nothing compared to the stuff that you're going to know a decade from now. 100 years ago, people thought they were super smart. And now when we're reading what they were doing, what they were saying, it's kind of foolish for us because we know so much better. 100 years from now, people will be looking at what we believed and what we were doing, and they're like, man, these people were like kids, because they will know so much more. It's all about progress. And when we think about it, that's how we grow our self-esteem, when we get rid of the ego and we start overcoming challenges. See, when a soldier joins an army, the very first that they do is the training starts like this. You join and they say, oh, how wonderful that you join us. You're going to be putting your life for this country. I mean, we're so happy. You must be very brave. And that's amazing that you have that volunteer spirit. I mean, that's what we're looking for. You must be a really good man. They're giving you a pep talk. No, they don't. When you join, you're a maggot. You're nobody. You're nothing. Get down on your knees and give me a 20 push-ups. Get your face in the dirt. You're nobody. Why? Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Well, they do that because they want to crush the ego. They want to prove to those boys that the ego has no place in that environment. They have to crush that ego to make those boys to be able to be coachable. Because when you get rid of the ego and then you realize, oh, you know what? I have limitations. But if I go through this training, if I go through this boot camp, at the end of the line, I'm going to have the self-esteem. I'm going to have the confidence that the Marines have. But I got to go through the boot camp. You can't get a self-esteem just by listening to somebody that will give you a whole bunch of compliments. How strong you are. Oh, you're so wonderful. There's greatness in you. There's light in you. You're strong. Just, go out there in the world and you're the best in the world. No, that's BS. BS. This is how people get actually depressed, because they're thinking for a moment, yeah, I'm strong. Like, I got so much strength in me. And they go out there, they get crushed, and they're like, oh, who am I kidding? I don't want to try again. I'm nobody. I gave it a shot and it was so much worse. No, you know what? You need training. We all do. So did I. I realized, you know what? I was fooled. I had to wipe off everything that I learned, and I had to start from scratch. I'm like, I was fooled. I want to learn, and I need to sacrifice X amount of time to learn more and more and more. I had to learn the history. I had to learn about the Bible. I had to learn about the evolution. I had to learn what the science was saying. I had to start from scratch, put all this knowledge. I didn't have to agree with everybody, but I pick and choose what makes the most sense to me, and I'm still learning. And guess what? The more I learn, the more I'm reshaping my mind. And I'm bringing more and more evidence. I'm like, come on, tell me more. When I'm listening to other people and they're telling you things that I don't believe in, and I disagree with them, but I still listen because I know there might be something in their beliefs. I want to know why they're thinking what they're thinking, what convinces them to believe the things that I don't. Maybe they have information I never heard before. It's always about learning. And when you overcome hard times and you actually give yourself credit for it, give yourself credit for the hard times that you have endured. Celebrate the successes. Your self-esteem will start growing. But you know what's so important? It's very important to go through that boot camp when you actually learn the skills and knowledge and experience that you're going to gain, and then you use it to impact other people. You cannot possibly know what is your worth unless you measure it somehow. Imagine this. Imagine you go and you play basketball, and there is nobody on the court, just you. How would you know if you are a good player or a bad player? How would you know? If there's no opponent. If you're playing with kids, you're going to be the best player on the court, right? If everybody's half your size and you're just playing, of course, you're going to win every shot. But is that a good opponent? But if you go play with the best players out there and then you got to beat them, now that is a worthy opponent. Because once you beat those tough guys who are the best, then and only then your self-esteem starts growing. You know what that means? That means the hero grows with the size of the opponent. Unless there is a villain, there is no hero. And everybody's running away from problems. Jehovah's Witnesses were running away from problems. They were. I've seen Jehovah's Witnesses hiding from me. Like, oh, they seem like they hide behind the fence or somewhere. I heard those stories all the time. And the apostate is walking on the street and they didn't know what to do with themselves. So they would go and hide. They don't even have a strength to look at us with a straight face. I've been asking many Jehovah's Witnesses, please, I'm begging you, if you want to criticize me, do it in public. Come on my show. We'll do a show together. I'll be nice and kind to you. Let's just have a friendly discussion. None of them will do it. Not one. Maybe there will be one that will have the strength to do it, but so far they're all hiding and they're finding excuses. They're calling me names, and I heard all the names. Oh, you're apostate. You're Satan's tool. You're possessed by demon. They're mentally diseased. You name it. I've heard all of those, but they're all hiding because they're all scared. They don't have the self-esteem. They just have a very high ego of we have the best, and why would I bother myself with you? I don't blame them. That's what I used to think. That's how I used to believe. But if we want to get a self-esteem really strong, got to get rid of the ego. We got to learn and we got to overcome challenges. See, coming out of a very controlling group, you had to pay a price. You had to pay a great price. Most people did. Not only the friends that you had in the congregation that was tough to say goodbye to. But many of you had to say goodbye to your family. Many of you had to say goodbye to your parents or even your own children, which is one of the biggest pains that a person can experience, the disconnect of people that you love and care about, and you have done nothing wrong to them. You love them the same way you loved them a decade ago, and you have done nothing wrong, and they don't want to see you. It's much harder than overcoming death because they're treating you like you're dead already, but probably even worse because people go and see dead people in the cemetery. They won't see you. You can call them, they won't pick up the phone. That spiritual disconnect, it is suffering. But you've managed to overcome it. And the reason why I can say this is because most people don't go back. If it was really that tough, that you would go back. But you chose not to. And if you chose not to, you broke a chain. And that shows me that you have that strength, that you have that courage. But you got to practice it more. When you were Jehovah's Witness, you had that courage because you believed in something bigger than yourself. You believed that the cause was worth fighting for. The cause was worth dying for. And the problem for a lot of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, they feel like they don't have that kind of a purpose worth dying for. Because when you were a Jehovah's Witness, if somebody told you take a blood or die, majority of you probably would say, I'd rather die. It's something worth fighting for, worth dying for. But now maybe you lost that strength. Maybe you feel like your life doesn't have the same kind of meaning, the same kind of purpose, because you don't have that drive. Because you felt like what you do is not as fulfilling. You wasn't connected to a greater purpose. What I tell you right now, you just got to see it. You have to see it. The fact that you are living in a life, a real life that you have to cherish, that every day of your life is a life worth appreciating for. Because think about it. Chances are, if you're watching me, you're living in a wealthy country. You have internet. You're watching me, that means you're speaking in English, right? Do you have any idea how many people are risking their life, and many people died just trying to get to the country you're living in, where you have a freedom of speech, where you have a freedom of religion? Sure, not everything is fair. Just read a little bit about history of people who said no to a pope or to a cardinal or to a priest, and they would never see a daylight, who were tortured. If you live in Europe, go to any castle, any major church, go to the basement, see what's there, and see what kind of treatment people had for disagreeing with the authority of the religion. We're living in times we forget how great we have. That's right. We forget how wonderful life that we have, how comfortable, how beautiful the houses that we live in, that we have clean water every day, that we have electricity, that we have communication the way we do, that we have transportation like nobody else before. How much money do you think King Solomon, in all his glory and the gold that he had, would give you for a cell phone, for a car, for air conditioning, for the way of communicating, for the telephone? How much? We have lives that kings and pharaohs couldn't dream of. We just forget it because everybody else has it around us. And that's the problem. We're comparing ourselves with people who have it better. This is why it's so difficult to develop self-esteem, because you're scrolling through the phone and looking at people's lives where they post pictures of, oh, look what I traveled, or look what I have done. And you feel like, oh, I wish I had that. And you're forgetting of billions who would love to have your problems. But that's not here. They're not showing that. They're not showing the fact that so many people have to carry dirty water for miles just to give it to their own kids. You don't see that every day. You're forgetting that 1/3 of this world lives on $2 a day. You forget that. You don't see that on social media, at least not that often. And that's the challenge. If we want to live a happy life, if we want to live a life where we feel the fulfillment, we feel strength, we feel like our self-esteem is growing, we have to start making an impact. We have to start making other people's life better. If you don't see that what you do, your knowledge, your skills, your experience makes other people's life better, then you're wasting your time. Because impact will make you a better person. Because you will see what you're doing to other people, that what you do matters. There's no greater joy than to see that people's life is better because you were here. And at the end of this life, and yes, you will die, and so will I. We all will. No matter how much we believe that we will never die, we will. And there will be a day when you will not be able to do anything because you're old, and the only thing you can do is look back. Think about the biggest regrets. And it's usually in the form of, I should have done this. I should have gone for it, but I was too afraid. I was too afraid of what people will say. I was too afraid of losing something or someone. I should have done it and I didn't do it. And I tell you, there might be a pain of losing something for a moment. There might be a pain of embarrassment. There might be a pain of somebody's criticizing you, of somebody's opinion. But the pain of a regret is 100 times worse. Live life without regrets. People regret things they didn't go for. They don't regret the mistakes. They don't regret their failures. They regret the things that they wanted to do and they have not done it because they chickened out. If you have a choice between getting somebody else angry and getting yourself angry, choose somebody else to be angry at you. If you have a choice between disappointing yourself or having somebody else disappointed in you, let them be disappointed with you. You start valuing yourself, you start loving yourself, you start respecting yourself. And automatically you'll see other people will start love you and respect you and value you. But if you don't value yourself, if you don't love yourself, if you don't respect yourself, nobody else will. Why would they? You know yourself the best. Choose to love, give respect, make an impact, help other people, solve their problems, get rid of their fears, get rid of whatever the concerns that they have. There'll be moments when they'll say, you know what, I'm scared. I want to do something, but I don't know how. And you'll step up there and say, you know what? Step aside, I'll handle it. Because I went through hell and I know what it is. And I found a path and I can do this now. I know it's not easy to get rid of all the indoctrination. I know it's not easy to leave the mindset and the religion and everything. I know it's not easy. But like I said, the bigger the villain, the bigger the hero. If you become a hero, if you create that path, the meaning will find you. You'll find your life to be very fulfilling when you see that through the pain that you went through, you discovered a path, you created a path, and you walked the path that now others follow. Thanks for watching.